Trying to spread out the hers a little bit.
All right.
Am I centered?
Am I centered? I don't feel centered.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Magic Mics, proudly sponsored by our Patreon supporters and CoolStuffInc.com, where you can find cool stuff in stock every day, and CardHoarder.com, our co-sponsor, offering the best inventory prices and delivery of cards for Magic Online. I am Evan Irwin, and we get started each week by saying hello to my two co-hosts, Aaron Campbell.
Greetings.
Ruben Bressler.
Oh, hi. How are you?
Well, how you doing?
I'm doing all right.
It's been a heck of a week. We got some cool stuff to talk about. Pretty excited about. However, we also get started with our trumpet blasts. You can get one if you support us at our highest level at Patreon. You get one a month, and this week's trumpet blast concerns catching some sweet, sweet legacy action Monday through Friday with Paragon City Games at twitch.tv/Paragon City Games. Join them tomorrow at noon Eastern Time for Brian's return stream. That's right.
Excellent.
I have something I'd like to kind of put on blast a little bit in a good way. I just want to say real quick that I was at SCG Indy this past weekend, and in addition to being a record-breaking open, I think we had over 1,050 people show up for the main event. It was the biggest open on record in the history of opens, but not only that, I got showered with love. There were a lot of really awesome people that I met this weekend. Special shout-outs to Audrey and Shadrick, and the two brothers who said they were going to listen to our show the whole way home as they drove back home to Florida. I did not do very well this weekend, and so having so many people come up to me and be so nice to me really did make my weekend, and I just wanted to say thank you so much for that, for the people who asked for things to sign and asked for selfies and all that. You really did make my weekend, and thank you.
Yay, awesome. That's terrific. Well,
yeah, and I'll be in Memphis this coming weekend, so if you're at Grand Prix Memphis, come say hello, as I'll be working there.
That sounds like fun. My home state.
And I'm going to be, I'm going to need to tune into Paragon City Games to learn about Legacy, because I haven't played Legacy in like a year. But yeah, I'll be playing Modern next month at Grand Prix Phoenix. Y'all can see me there.
Ooh. And I'll be at SCG Worcester in 2 weeks. I just bought my plane ticket for that, and so I'll be playing Legacy too. So I've been having to get back in the swing of things, and it's the Wild West out there. Like, Legacy could use some of the love that Modern's been getting right now, because it definitely feels like you can tell that the mom and dad are gone because the kids are playing.
And you can see Evan live never, because he doesn't leave the house.
Wow.
It's him and Seth. They share an apartment in the middle of the moon, and they never make public appearances.
Well, we can move on here to our giveaway this week. And we are going to give away a super, super duper sweet deck box. Not sure if you've had a deck box that costs a whole bunch of money, but the Ultimate Guard Sidewinder Chromia Skin deck case. It's a deck case, okay? There's a certain point it becomes deck cases. I'm putting the link in Twitch. Ruben, help me, please, and YouTube, because you have to do some magical stuff to it.
Try my best.
Yeah, it is pretty crazy. But that said, the Ultimate Guard deck case 100 plus Sidewinder Chromia Skin. It's a blue one because it's the best color of Magic. So we're gonna give one of those away. Feel free to follow the link. Good luck to everybody. We're going to pick the winner in a little bit less than an hour and see who wins that. But that said, we finally get to our first pick. So first pick, real quick, previous Rim 25 start next week, including ours. And by that I mean previews. Multiple.
We have 3 hosts, 3 previews.
That's how it works.
Next week when we preview them, you can identify which preview is for which of us and argue about that in the chat.
we demanded it. We were like, look, one preview is not enough, guys. We need one for
Better
everybody.
make it 3.
Don't you know who we are?
Right.
So that's coming next week, which is going to be sweet. And the official spoilers start on Monday, so I'm excited about that. We're going to have a crowdfunder. We're going to have a Kickstarter we would like to do, and this is something that if you are part of our Discord or part of our Patreon, you've known about for a little bit. We are going to kickstart our way to a Dominaria Complete Set review. Over the next few days is the idea. We want, sometime this week, sometime soon, to launch the Kickstarter proper, so watch our social channels for that to happen. But we would like to make complete set reviews happen with all of us in person in Orlando. We'll have a production. We'll make the shows. We might be able to film some other stuff. It's going to be super cool. And you'll have more details about that coming this week. That said, okay, finally, the first pick, the officials. Well, Wizards... Wizards has a kind of way of putting things that kind of pisses a lot of people off, and I don't think they really mean to. And again, from my private conversations with people at Wizards, they usually don't mean to stir the pot the way they do, but they do. And they updated their fan content policy. And they spelled out a few things that were a little weird and kind of read strangely, in the way that you can use their intellectual property, in the ways that you can't, and the ways that you can't make something with a mana symbol on it and you can't sell it. The idea that everything you make has to be free. And what happens when you put stuff behind a paywall? It's not free then, but you're making content. Well, that's different because that's commentary and that's covered under fair use. That's why SCG premiums exist. That's why quiet speculation exists. And they're using Wizards IP, but they're talking about it, and that's different. That content that they're writing, that is their copyright because they're commentary on Magic. That's their own stuff. So it's a little bit weird, a little bit strange. I think they had they had the best the interests in heart, I think, with what they were doing and what they were changing or what they're updating. But a lot of this stuff was, it's real simple. Don't hurt Wizards, don't hurt others, nothing weird, bad, no Rule 34s, please. Practice safe sponsorship, that type of stuff, and follow the law of the land. So a lot of this is very much common sense. And a lot of times what you see from Wizards is a lot of common sense, where they're like, here, if there's a problem, Wizards will contact you. If you're doing something that Wizards is like, hey, that's not cool, you're going to hear from them. And that doesn't mean they send lawyers after you. That normally means, somebody from a Wizards community team is like, hey, what's going on? Are you doing a little something cray-cray? That's it. But, the idea that the proxy guy, for example, is in some sort of trouble or in danger or is not going to be able to make content is, as far as I can tell, not the case. No one, Wizards ain't coming for your content. They're not coming to get you. But it did stir up a lot of emotion this week.
Yeah, this is another example of a situation where we could have used some real community management. Over the past 6 months, we've seen Wizards drop these random announcements at really inopportune times, and then just leaving them there with no clarification and no explanation, and really leaving people to kind of spin themselves into these frenzies. I saw people on Twitter last night that were in all seriousness saying, "I'm out of a job. Like, I'm not writing anymore. I can't make videos anymore." And I can't blame them for feeling that way, because there was nothing. And, we really could have used some people steering the conversation, making sure that the train was staying on the rails. And the only thing I really saw was Trick Jarrett an hour ago posting something as he's leaving the office saying, "Oh yeah, I'll check on the replies while I'm out." Like, what? Like, you should have had people, the minute this post dropped, you should have had people watching that post, and they've done it in the past. It wasn't always like this. There's been a shift lately. There's been an absence of community management that wasn't always there before, but you should have had people, the minute that post came out, watching that post, watching Reddit, watching the replies, and making sure that the conversation was going the way that you wanted it to. It should have never been allowed to spin to the point where people are afraid for, their content and their logos and things of that nature. You shouldn't be doing a post while you're at the dentist saying, "Oh yeah, ask me questions while I'm in the waiting room." That's not how this goes. And one thing that really bothered me, another thing that really bothered me, is the voice that was used in this post. I was really put off by that. And I can throw some sass. I'm a sassy person. But whoever thought that tone of voice was appropriate for like a legal official company document, that post was really kind of like,
are we talking
harsh.
About like the content, the content policy itself, or this follow-up that they did?
The official post itself, like, it came across as very like edgy, of like, hey, we know this is, you look at it, it's very like
we're cool, right? We're
right,
super,
like you could tell that I understand not wanting it to be purely legalese because people are really not going to understand it, but they went way too far with like this whole like sassy, yeah, we don't care what you think kind of voice. And it was like, I was even kind of put off, like, are you talking to me like this? Like, we're not friends. Like, you don't know me like that. And so, I was put off by the lack of community management happening with this post. And I was especially put off by the tone of voice of whoever wrote this post, because I was like, you're still a company. Like, you still can't talk to people like this. And the whole thing just really put me off.
It's unfortunate, I think, the backlash. Ruben, what you got?
Yeah, so this reminded me yet again of, remember a couple months ago when we were saying the exact same things about like, yeah, I guess this is a press release that's intended to explain things, but all it does is make things murkier. Yeah. Sound familiar? sounds very much like the kerfuffle a couple months ago with getting background checks. Is they've decided to say something, and all they've succeeded in doing is making everybody more afraid than they already were, which is not ideal when your goal is to be, clear and concise and helpful to your fans. The update that they let out on their Wizards Magic Tumblr that is entitled "About That Fan Policy" should never have been necessary, but I'm glad that they did it, I guess.
At 8 p.m. Central Time on a Thursday or a Wednesday?
It's less than ideal. Look, there are other things that people do on 8 p.m. on a Wednesday, this show included, but Pacific Time, 5 p.m. Hawaiian. But what I'm trying to say is that branding is that it's less than ideal communication, and I was really super confused. I was talking with folks in the middle of the night last night while I was off shift at work over Twitter and over Facebook Messenger, about what this means even for us, like for this show. Like every once in a while we bring up the homepage. Are we suddenly subject to whatever this is because we have a Patreon? Not that we bring up anything that's, intellectual property during the Patreon stuff, but, where's the line? It seems intentionally vague, which on the one hand, I'm happy for them to do some stuff that's intentionally vague. Because people who know where the line is are going to purposefully toe the line. And then there's the whole, big brother, little sister, I'm not touching you garbage that they have to deal with every once in a while. So having a blurry border is helpful in that case. But in this case, it's not. Like, I don't know how this affected us or how it affected users who use a lot of Magic cards and images in their work, like Magic Man Sam and the Professor, who use specific details of certain Magic products in their videos, much more than we do. What does that mean for us? What does it mean for for those of you who've been paying attention to the pre-show and some of my other chatter? I'm trying to launch a Magic the Gathering themed D&D show. So on the one hand, I'm happy that I can use Magic logos and stuff. Hooray! But as soon as I make $1 from that, am I suddenly subject to a takedown? Am I suddenly going to get a cease and desist in the mail as soon as one person donates to me? So I don't know. So I was scared. And I have no right to be afraid. And also, this is the show where all the people come to for the news. And if I don't know what's going on, what hope do the rest of us have when it's literally my job to try to help explain it? I was very confused. I was super helped by Adrienne Reynolds, Dreamtime Drin on Twitter. Had a great post explaining this to me, which was nice. Gave me a good TLDR. Too long didn't read TLDR. Their letters, I don't know how words work. Which I'll retweet on my Twitter right now. That has a nice chain explaining a lot of the changes, or not changes, just explaining why they came out with this right now.
I mean, ultimately, what they basically say is that, first of all, these rules, as they've explained them, have existed but haven't been clearly laid out in
I
some
believe
fashion.
This document in particular, I think Adrienne said, is from 2014. So I think this has been out for a little while. Yeah.
Right. Again, if there were problems, we would have already heard about them. The issue is that they kind of run this out there, and then there's a lot of questions, and then there's not a lot of answers. And when you leave people with nothing, they will define something. They will figure out usually the worst case scenario of that something.
It's ironic because I heard a rumor that the reason this was released was that they wanted to encourage people, that they really wanted to kick the content up a notch, prior to Dominaria and during Dominaria, that they really wanted people to kind of be going nuts with the set and having fun with it. And the irony is that this probably scared people away from wanting to make content instead of making more, because they were just so terrified of, we don't know what this means and we don't want to make Big Brother mad at us. And it was just a misfire.
It's fine. I mean, things could have been done better. Again, this post on Tumblr is just like hey, we're, don't worry, there's no nefarious purpose, which, as the professor pointed out, is a little super villainy. It's like,
I don't know that it's fine though. I mean,
pay no attention to the man behind the curtain.
I don't know that it's fine though. It's worrying that this is now at least the third announcement I'm aware of in 6 months that we're seeing a pattern here, that this is how Wizards is starting to do things. And if this was their first time at the rodeo, I might be a little more forgiving of that. But for a company of their size, they need a better way to handle this. I hate to say this, but even my company, Card Hoarder, for example, shout out to Card Hoarder, our bots were down today. We had an issue with the MTGO update. We were watching Reddit, we were watching Twitter, we were making sure that the things that were going out were the way we wanted to word them. We wanted to make sure that our message was clear. We wanted to make sure that if our customers were being adversely affected, that we were controlling that discussion. And we're a much smaller business than Hasbro, than Wizards. And even we understand having to jump into Reddit threads, having to jump into Twitter. And to see a company that is, infinitely larger than us not do that, it is a little troubling. And we're on at least the third announcement now. Like, guys, you gotta step it up.
I mean, that also, again, says something to the background check thing. It's vague, it's scary.
Stop that.
Nothing's really clear. No one's really saying exactly what you need to do. There's no centralized administration of any of this stuff. There's no one point of contact that you can talk about with this stuff, right? Because ... legal something lawyers. So
we just expect better. That's the point I'm trying to stress. That I expect better from Wizards of the freaking Coast.
So we're gonna move on here because we have lots of topics tonight. To gather in the townsfolk. What was going to be our first pick until this whole kerfluffle with the fan content was Somebody Got. And not just somebody got, but Gabriel Nassif got at the Grand Prix.
The fourth best Magic player of all time got.
Yeah, and
we can impromptu red zone if anyone wants to disagree with my placement there. But I mean,
Well, all I know is that he said, that's a forest. At which point they said that's no forest, and then sadness was falling over the land, because Dryad Arbor, as the From the Vault foiled version, looks a lot like a regular forest. Now, the original Dryad Arbor, weird frame, weird things going on in the artwork, not any forest that look like that, so on and so forth. The From the Vault Dryad artwork, though, pretty freaky looking and really weird in terms of how close it is to other forests. I think there was like a Zendikar forest or some other forest where you really could see them side by side.
Yeah.
And it was kind of scary. Now, ultimately, I think this in particular was, to me, kind of a tempest in a teapot. I've never seen people go into like, well, let's just ban it. Let's just ban this from the wall. Let's print some replacements. Let's create an exchange program. And I'm like, guys, whoa.
Welcome to modern. I mean.
First of all, this needs to be something you need to be aware of. Second of all, there needs to be a rule, and far as I know, there is one, that your lands go before your creatures. They go in front of it. Even if they're land creatures, they need to go in front of your lands to showcase it. And as somebody pointed out, that it was it's actually an example. Dryad Arbor is an example in the rules where it's like, this is why you need to have creatures in front of lands, because this type of stuff happens. So, whether it was a placement problem or whatever, ultimately, this to me was this is a teaching moment. This is a moment where people learn things and notice things if they hadn't before. This is a point where we need to make sure that lands are in front of, or creatures are in front of lands like they're supposed to be, and we won't have any more problems out of this. But the whole let's ban things and reprint and exchange, I just thought was just crazy. I just didn't understand it.
Yeah, there was a lot to unpack here. And I would recommend anybody really looking at that board state, because it was a little complicated. There was a lot going on with the Bogle in question, with Daybreak Coronets, and the Umbra on it, with the Dryad Arbor. Looking at Nassif being at 2 life and having the Kenras that both have Menace, and then the Phoenixes and the Bloodghast. And so I think it was an image that a lot of people jumped to conclusions to. Because when I first looked at it, I was like, oh, he's dead on board anyways. Who freaking cares, And then when I really looked at it and broke it down, I was like, okay, this very well could have changed the game, because if him thinking that the lifelinker can't block is a good thing, and then having it be able to block then gives the opponent 5 more life, at least 5 more life, and that changes the game radically. And there's a number of ways you could slice this. There has been precedent for banning cards that aren't necessarily powerful but do negatively affect the game, like Sensei's Divining Top, the Eggs deck, for example. These are cards and decks that have made tournaments go longer, made turns go longer. They're not necessarily broken, but for the purpose of making the game better, they've been sort of dealt with. I don't think we've ever seen a version of a card be eliminated for that reason, but there is a precedent for...
Not exactly true.
Is there?
In fact, there is a version of a card that is not allowed in tournament play, as broken down by Marshall Sutcliffe in a recent video. The misprinted Wald.
It's a German
W-A-L-D. It's a German forest that was accidentally printed on Plains art. Is not legal for tournament play. For very similar reasons, because it can be misleading. If you play a bunch of Valds and your opponent thinks you only have white mana, then you play a big green thing, or vice versa. That's very confusing. And so that is slightly different because this was intentionally designed this way, whereas the Vald is a misprint.
Sure.
And, you know, there are other rules about misprints, like it has to have the name clearly visible, it has to have all of the text there, you know, things like that.
Yeah, and then there's also the argument that he just should have been paying attention to the board state. Am I right? Like,
okay, all right, listen.
I mean,
someone's got to be the villain here.
Yeah. So, Evan, you think that this Dryad Arbor should continue to be tournament legal and should not be banned?
Absolutely.
Do you have the red zone overlay handle?
Wow.
Because you're wrong, and I hate you.
Let me get my
wow.
It's really. It's
I don't.
It's
okay,
abject horrificness that this thing is allowed to be played.
You are abject horrificing me? Wow.
If a Hall of Fame Magic the Gathering player can get got by a creature hiding underneath lands, cheaty face style, like we're playing an entirely normal armchair in round 6 of a Grand Prix, then that's a problem. There's no reason for you to play this version of this land unless it's card availability or you're trying to angle shoot. Those are the only two reasons.
Or it's pretty and you like it. So let me bring up real quick.
There's a basic land in Avacyn Restored that looks almost exactly like this.
And that is officially on the screen right now. I went and found it because someone in the chat, thank you very much, had mentioned it. And again, no doubt about it, if you foiled out your Avacyn Restored Forest and your foiled Dryad Arbor rather, it'd be very hard to tell the two apart. I understand that. But the idea that just because it looks like something means you can't use it anymore is ridiculous. Like, it's still a creature, and you need to treat it like one, and don't let them put it back there with the lands. That's the whole point, in my opinion. Just, you know, play your cards correctly, which means put your creatures in front of your lands. And it's a creature.
It's also a land.
Even when it's a land. All right, cool. Well, I'm glad we reached that that consensus. That's pretty terrific. We're gonna
good show, guys.
All right, good job, guys. Way to go. Excellent red zone. So we're gonna move on here.
I'm too tired to argue this point. I mean, it's like
the passive aggressiveness of I'm going to bed.
Yeah, I'll go to bed. Whatever. This is also not the hill I'm willing to die on. So.
It's fine, and it's just, again, for me, the whole thing, and first of all, I'm an old man, therefore I use words like Tempest in a teapot, which, for those who don't know, means a mountain out of a molehill, making something larger than it is. This is, Nassif got God. Did you see Nassif get? Because, like, that's crazy. And that was all it was for me. I was not expecting this whole dialogue about, like, how we fixed this card. There's nothing wrong with it. All right, moving on here.
Fix any card, we need to fix Norn the Wary. Card is...
Yeah. Check the pre-show for all the goodness in that one. Well, let me tell you, something showed up finally that I was not expecting to actually show up because it kept being delayed over and over and over again. And these are the Ultra Pro Relic Tokens. Now, I have the video playing right now on the screen that shows them off a little bit. And I will be 100% honest. I thought these things were the stupidest thing I'd heard of in a long time. And I mean, like, real bad. Like, this is some of the worst thinking I've seen in terms of a card and you know, a Magic accessory. However, while this one doesn't, you know, this video isn't of the Command Zone cast, which also had some of these. What they did was, they said, take a look at these things. Take a look at how you can change the numbers, you know, via the bottom and stuff. And they said, you put it on top of a token. It is perfectly made to go in that token art space.
In that window.
That's correct. And so then you can say, like, how many that you have of something, or you can put power and toughness if you want to, or, you know, on top of a Tarmogoyf or something. But all I'm saying is that I thought they looked a lot better than I was expecting. I thought the foil shined in a really nice way. And finally I was like, wow, that's kind of useful for a bunch of goblins and stuff, because it fits exactly where it needs to go. So, you know, I'm happy to eat crow in this one, because I'm telling you, I thought that stuff was dumb, and it doesn't look that bad. And we'll see how it works. You know, are people going to buy packs of tokens? Do people care if they're foil or not? Like, are those things going to actually have value? But if they do, shops are definitely going to have them.
How much are these?
Like $4 a pack, and you get 3 tokens out of them, I think is the setup.
That's not too bad. I mean, these are fine. Like, I'm not sure I'd go out of my way to buy them for myself.
And just to be clear, they're random tokens. You don't get to...
Sure.
Like,
right. It's a random, you know, it's a booster pack. There's rare tokens. There's foil rare tokens, stuff like that.
I love me some tokens,
excited about that.
I love tokens, but I prefer to, like, I'll go to Cardamajigs. Shout out to Cardamajigs, because that site is dangerous. But yeah, I'll go and, like, get the specific ones I need, but I'm not really sure about having it be random, where it's like, you get a Saproling, and I'm like, why? Like,
I'm real excited for the secondary relics tokens market. And the podcasts that will spring up around MTG Relic Tokens Finance.
Again,
will come out of this.
This is so this was just, again, one of those things where, you know, maybe it won't work. I don't know who's going to stock it, who's not, but cool stuff will have some, and we'll see how they sell. And if they sell, you know, we'll.
And if they don't sell, we'll just give them away on this show. Am I right?
Right. There you go.
Everybody gets relic tokens. We won't talk about this anymore. Sorry.
Right. I assume that that this will be a future partial giveaway for us, because, you know, this is a thing that is nicely designed for giveaways. I think this is like a unique item that not everyone will go out of their way for. But I would happily receive these if I won them, you know, and I would use them if I had them in front of me. But I'm not sure I'll, you know, drive across town and be like, do you guys have the rare relic tokens? But then again, I'm not the audience.
Yeah.
You know, I'm more than happy to just have a stack of like a stack of zombie tokens for my Bridge from Below's, like that kind of deal.
Ruben.
Wow.
I was gonna go with the goblin tokens, but you know what? Present company being what it is.
Not excluded. All right. So those were kind of neat, and I thought that was cool. However, over the weekend was the New York Toy Fair. And the Toy Fair is where not only do you get to see super cool new toys and stuff coming out, and even for me, like board games and stuff coming in the hobby industry, well, Wizards was there, and Wizards had packaging. And I think as you look through some of these images I'm about to put on the screen, I think you can definitely tell this is prototype packaging. Like, I literally think somebody went in with like an X-Acto and like carved these things out, because a little rough around the edges. That's okay. I just kind of prepping you. Anyway, the Toy Fair Hasbro Magic booth had some really cool pieces of artwork and showed off some really sweet deck boxes on the screen here. You got wooden deck boxes and Planeswalker hats and stuff. And it also showed off the bundle for Core Set 2019 and the packaging for that, which was sweet. The Deck Builder's Toolkit, which also has Nicol Bolas on it for Core Set 2019. It showed the Dominaria pre-release pack, which was pretty sweet. It has Teferi right on the front of it. And also spoiled that the Magic 25, or rather the Core Set, will have Tezzeret as a Planeswalker, because there's a Tezzeret Planeswalker deck. And you're not going to have a Tezzeret Planeswalker deck if you don't have Tezzeret in the set. So that's really cool. It shows you right now on the screen there's Jace, Ingenious Mind Mage in there, but that's obviously for mock-up purposes. So you see the Core Set 2019 pre-release pack, the Dominaria pre-release pack. That's really sweet. And we move on here, and you get to see Dominaria packaging. I have this on the screen right now, where it looks like there's an Avon. That's really cool. We ain't seen birds in a long time. And there's some new characters on there. And it looks like Teferi is one of them, which is pretty cool.
Teferi with hair.
With hair.
Yeah. With hair.
Goatee action. That's pretty cool. So I'm excited about that.
Karn.
Yeah. And you have Chandra and Teferi Planeswalker decks. So now I go like, well, are there 3 Planeswalker decks?
Right.
Because that's weird. You also they spoiled the symbol for Dominaria, which I have on the screen right now, thanks to the D20. So that's pretty cool. It doesn't really remind me of anything. It looks sort of like wings, like a weird head shape type thing. But that's pretty neat. And yeah, so we'll see where all this kind of leads. But, you know, being able to see cool new stuff first is where these types of fairs shine. Yeah.
This year's New York Toy Fair caught my attention for a couple of reasons. Primarily because non-Magic related, I just have to point out that every toy maker had a poop themed toy come out. God. Did you notice this?
Why?
The theme for the weekend, and this is from Board Game Geek, was that everything was poop or everything was blindfolds. And that was that's the shtick this year is poop
so
and blindfolds.
Mattel came out with Flush and Frenzy. Hasbro last year came out with Toilet Trouble, and this year released Don't Step in It, which combines the two. That's a blindfold game where you're supposed to avoid stepping into poop. Yeah, it's molded out of a clay-like substance.
It's true. There's Blind Twister coming out. And my favorite, and this isn't related to these two things, but my favorite is that they are making a sequel to Uno, the card game Uno.
Is it called Dose?
It's called Dose!
Yes, I'm so happy. That is fantastic.
Like R, not the Onion. I swear to God, the sequel is called Dose. That
is fantastic. I really like that a lot.
It's so much fun. It's so silly. So yeah, the Toy Fair was cool and showed us some new interesting stuff coming down the pike, and that's awesome.
Yeah.
We do have a announcement of a event, something that Aaron, I'm sure, is pretty excited about. The Eternal Weekend is coming up. Aaron, you want to tell us about it?
Yeah, so Card Titan is the TO, Nick Koss. Shout out to Nick Koss. They are the TO that is responsible for Eternal Weekend, which I went to for the first time ever last year. They've announced the location and the dates for this year's Eternal Weekend. It's going to be happening November 1st through the 4th. This year, they're going to stay in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and I'm so excited. Nick puts on a really, really good show. They are one of the few events where the VIP is worth every penny. Yep. You get your own sort of fetchers that will go sign up for events for you, get you life pads for you. You have your own water cooler, which they did not have water. Fun fact, they didn't have water available really for the rest of the folks, but the VIP people did, to the point where the people who didn't have VIP were joking about breaking in and stuff. It was the freaking French Revolution. It was great. You had a great little secluded area. We had fixed seating. If you ever get VIP for an event, absolutely get it for Eternal Weekend. It's worth every penny. I'm really excited. I'm really hoping I can make it this year. There's a little bit of some competition with the SCG Con because they also have a Slammin' tournament that's happening. I just said Slammin'. I'm so sorry.
All right. How y'all doing, fellow kids?
But it's a good show, and the sooner they can release the information, the better, because Pittsburgh is a little difficult to get to. But I'm so excited, and it's good that they're building the hype early.
Awesome.
Yeah. I've worked with Card Titan before. I've done commentary for a WMCQ with them. Nick Koss is great. Pittsburgh's a really good location. The David L. Lawrence Convention Center is super easy to get to. That early November dating is good because that's sort of like a relatively dry time unless you're on the Pro Tour, in that almost winter doldrums. So I'm looking forward to that event as well. Yeah. If you need, if you're looking for a commentator, I'm available. So
I'm also available for your needs. We can
true.
do it together, Ruben.
You know more about vintage than I do, though.
All right, so we're moving here to Desperate Ravings. This week we got another treat, and by a treat I mean Magic Man Sam, also known as Ristic Studies, made a new video framing 25.
Video was good
with the proxy guy.
Yes, framing 25 years of Magic, where he breaks down on a 49-minute video. This was a non-zero amount of work. He worked, as far as I know, weeks and weeks on this thing. 49 minutes, all of it absolutely riveting. All of it riveting. You're just like, wow, that's how cards came together, and that's why, and this is when it doesn't work, and this is why it doesn't work, and the proxy guy jumps in there and explains a little bit of it, and it was terrific. It was absolutely terrific.
Let me ask you a question, Evan.
Yeah, buddy.
Does that foil Dryad Arbor look like a Magic card to you?
Yes.
What Magic card does it look like to you?
Forest.
Okay.
It's also a creature. That's why it has power and toughness.
All right.
But I will quickly, and I'll give you this one. I'll go ahead and oh man, I thought I had it pulled up. I didn't. Where the Mishra's Photoshop had the forest with little scratch off 1/1 on the bottom. I thought that was awesome.
This video, I'm sorry that I pulled out a joke to just to pull away from this video, but this video is 50 minutes of talking about card frames, and I've never been more riveted by anything in my entire life. This was well researched, well produced, beautiful. I mean, everything that Sam makes is perfect and gorgeous, but this in particular was just a magnum opus of spectacular, just everything. Like, it was just really, really, really well done. If you haven't seen it yet, after this show, go take 50 minutes out of your life and go take a look.
Yeah, it's awesome. And it's one of those things where, like, if I had some, and he's mentioned, you know, that if some of my work has helped inspire him make things, that makes me super happy. Because if I had some way to lead to him making stuff like this, then that's awesome, and I am humbled, and that is terrific.
I don't support many things on Patreon, but I support him on Patreon because I want him to make things for me so that I can put them in my brain, because they are perfect.
Into your brain parts. Well, let's go ahead and take something that's really awesome to something that's really terrible. And by that, I mean Magic Online Toxicity. And I guess, honestly, while I could set this up and whatnot, Aaron, I think you not only have personal experiences... but, you know, you work in this environment. Magic Online is your kind of playground. Tell me about what happened here.
You're also on Moto more than both of us combined, for sure, I think.
For sure.
Yeah, I went 1-4 in my Legacy League last night.
You need those cameras on to perform.
Nice.
Yeah, nobody needs to see how bad my mulligans were last night. But so Tiago Saporito is a young man who is part of Hararia Latin, I believe. Don't quote me on that, but he's a successful Brazilian Magic player who I love. He's friends with a lot of our Brazilian Magic players on Team Card Order Brazil. And so I've gotten the chance to meet Tiago, and he's very lovely. Tiago has started streaming recently. He is known as Bolov0 on Magic Online, and he shared a screenshot the other day from a game of Limited that he was playing where his opponent basically just lost their damn mind, made a bunch of comments about Tiago's ethnicity, implies that like he kidnaps people in the hoods, called him the N-word, called him a gay slur, implied that he, you know, possibly has familial relations, tells Tiago to choke on various body parts. I mean, this was extra. And I mean, and I say this as somebody who is not the best loser. And whereas I might give you like an eye roll or I might give you a bless your heart, I have never come anywhere even remotely close to saying the things that this individual said to Tiago, who is a very sweet person. And even if he wasn't a sweet person, you still shouldn't talk to someone like that. But so basically the screenshot went viral, as it's wont to do when something happens to a successful, visible Magic player. It was picked up by people like PV and Luis Salvato and things like that. But then the discussion turned to, what does Magic Online really do about this? You know, when you block somebody on Magic Online, you automatically get the option to report somebody, which is great. But compared to the reaction times of other games, like say League of Legends, where within minutes you can get a report telling you what happened to the individual and apologizing to you for that experience, Magic Online is very behind in that regard. And so there was a lot of discussion as to, well, what is Moto going to do about this? And is there any sort of penalty of can you ban the person from Moto? You know, can you do something? And so it just really left a bad taste in people's mouths that in other games they seem to do more about that than we do on Moto.
Yeah. It seems from the chat or from the responses, which obviously 58 retweets, 336 likes on the initial post. This is a person who people are aware of, and already has many, at least one, probably several of their MTG accounts banned, and they just keep making new ones. So that's another problem that they haven't really figured out yet.
Well, what I would say essentially is that Magic Online's problem is perception. Your perception, and most people define that as their reality, as it turns out, is that nothing happens. And that even this person, as vile and as terrible as they are, nothing's going to happen. Yeah, you're going to report them, and nothing's going to happen. Now, maybe something happens, and that's great. But no one hears about it. No one knows about it.
Well, it's also a little concerning. This obviously wasn't this person's first time at the rodeo, because as Ruben pointed out in the pre-show, they knew enough about the system to space out their words. That, you know, Magic Online has a hair trigger. It'll even ban like good words just because they remotely sound. I think they even block the word rack. Like you can't say 8-rack on Moto because it'll give you the asterisks. And so this person knew to, when they were typing in the racial slurs, they knew to space certain letters apart from each other. When they were swearing at Tiago, they made sure to put like the F away from the U and to, you know, not spell things completely. So this person knew the deal. And so, you know, that's a little concerning that they've been through this before to where they knew how to, you know, not cause any alarm.
And further, he knew who Tiago was. He references
his ethnicity.
From.
Yeah.
So, you know.
Yeah. They also blocked the word queen as it turns out, thanks to the Maverick Girl on Twitch.
Oh, wow.
Which is kind of insane.
I get OMG blocked out every once in a while.
Yeah.
But,
yeah, it's frustrating.
Yeah, I mean, Paulo Vitor says, look, League of Legends does...
Wait, which Paulo Vitor are we talking about?
Dance Dance Revolution? Are there any other
counts? Okay.
Okay, great.
I was just asking. That's like asking Oprah who? I'm sorry, which?
Clooney who?
Yeah.
It often sends you messages, quote, the player you reported was punished for toxic behavior. Thanks for contributing to a better environment. And he says it makes him feel great, which it does. Can you imagine if part of the reporting process is that you hear back the next day or the next couple days of like, you know, so-and-so was punished. Thank you very much for your involvement in the community. Like, but again, I'm not even asking for that because look, from my perception is that Magic Online is getting just enough so Magic Online can keep making sets and doing things. No more beyond that. Okay. So if I'm going to request that Magic Online do something different, I want to make sure that I'm not trying to add more work to their workflow, or if I do, it's very small amount. So for me, if during their like monthly, hey, here's what's going on with Magic Online, or here's the next upcoming tournament series, if they're like, yo, just so you know, like a community update, like we banned 72 people because they were terrible, horrible people, and we are listening.
I would love that. If they were like, this month we put this many notches on the bedposts. That would make my life. I would be very happy about that.
Again, you would just know that something's happening because right now, when you got nothing, people fill it often with negativity. So, so Magic Online can help with that image.
The other one, I mean, I just thought of this. This is probably a bad idea. However, I think it's hilarious. So what you do is you erase the names from a screenshot and you post that screenshot to a special website and you let the community vote. Should this person be punished for this interaction on Magic Online?
It's awfully Hunger Games. I don't know how I feel about it.
It's pretty Hunger Gamesy.
Pretty Hunger Gamesy. But
let the democracy decide.
That said, all I'm pointing out is that for those who work on Magic Online, if you happen to hear any of these words, please know that people think you do nothing about this type of behavior, and I don't want that to be the case.
But this is the internet, unfortunately, and we try our hardest to get rid of this. But when people are able to hide behind a computer screen, as we well know, then they are more brazen in their insults. This is something that the opposing player would have never said to Tiago in person.
Yeah,
I hope. I mean, I would assume
we are assuming something therein. So anyway, I want to move on here to a brand new piece of art. Sometimes Wizards likes to just like throw out some new art. Like for example, you just saw the new Nicol Bolas art for Core Set 2019. And
speaking of art. Damn it. Original Magic Art posted a tweet last night. We are getting Phyrexian Unlife playmats.
And they are as creepy as you think.
They are creepy as hell. But I saw that tweet and I was like, oh, I need that in my life. And so
I have another piece of MTG art news that is only going to take about 3 seconds.
Yeah.
Someone found the original MTG art to Topan aesthetic at like a thrift store.
I don't even know what that is.
It's a Shards. I think it's a Shards uncommon. They just found it at a thrift store with like framed with a copy of Topan aesthetic in the frame, and they were just like, "Hey, I found this just like going through an antique mall. Is this real?" And everyone's like, "That looks pretty real."
Yeah,
I think it's hilarious.
I mean, it's not the most incredible piece of artwork, but for those who are curious, it is an uncommon from Shards of Alara. A green and 2 generic mana for a 2/2. You tap an untapped creature you control to give it +1/+1 until end of turn. So this was a neat little 3-mana guy. It was fun.
I picked it highly. It gave your exalted creatures even more utility when you attacked with your Topan aesthetic. The fact that it was just like hanging out in like the toy barn is just like, what? Why is this just in the back?
Well, one of the things
you find some gems sometimes. Anyway, back to our regularly scheduled program.
There you go. Sometimes you do find art in weird random places.
Yeah.
But the new Tezzeret art in Core Set 2019 is here, and I've got it on the screen right now. It is super neat, super cool. Zach Stella did a great job at showing the man himself, who has something, not just has the Ethereum arm, but also has like a little floating piece in front of him. Something a little small.
Yeah.
Like
electronic Navi.
Yeah, like it could possibly make a creature to protect itself, for example. And that's the way to represent something like that. But what I had taken from this, because, you know, take a thread and run with it, is that, oh man, we've seen Nicol Bolas, we've seen Tezzeret. This is it. This is villains. This is Magic villains. We get to see villains. Oh my god, the origins of all the villains would be insane. Magic origins for the good guys, Magic origins for the bad guys. Oh my god. And then Wizards was like, no, it's not villains. And I was like,
well, just because Wizards said it doesn't mean, I mean, they can't, I mean, do you really think they're going to tell you that it is this early in the game? I mean,
yeah,
it could maybe be.
No, I do actually, because they've shot down stuff like that before, because some rumors they don't like.
Can we talk about the thing I noted? The thing that stood out to me the most about this Tezzeret art is you'll notice that his shoulder pad isn't actually attached to him.
Right.
How cool is that? That the shoulder pad is just like, that his armor is like around him. Like, that's so dope. Dude. Like, I love everything about this.
Yeah, I really liked the flavor of the Magic Origins 5 Planeswalkers flipping into their transformed form. I would love for there to be something like that for Dominaria, perhaps even multicolored themed. If you had Nicol Bolas and you had Tezzeret, maybe there's some other villains that we can do the same thing with. I don't know how many villains we can really do multicolored. But I loved that, and I love villains in general, and I'd really like to see something like that in the future, if that isn't what this set is.
And again, from Wizards coming out and saying, guys, it's not the villains, it's just a core set. And I'm like, all right, but you know we totally want that, right? Because that would be totally insane.
Well, we learned from Origins that we can have both. We can have story elements, and we can have a core set. We don't need to choose. And the plan laid out by Origins is exactly the strategy to do it. It's a core set that worked. It had a fine limited environment, and oh, by the way, it also had some story elements. We got to see Kaladesh for the first time. We got to see lots of different planes for the first time. And we got to see where these characters came from. And we had these sort of vignette stories during Origins. And, oh, by the way, we got all of these other core set goodies, things that we need to make limited work, and core set goodies to make constructed work. We got to print things that, like Pithing Needle that we wanted for 10 years in Standard.
Hangerback Walker showed up out of that set.
Right, exactly. We get to have whatever Oblivion Ring variant we need in Standard, or if we're missing if there's a hole in Standard that we need filled, a requirement that needs to be checked, then a core set's the perfect way to do it. You don't have to choose. And villains are a great way to portray that as well, because villains are a product of their environment in perhaps even more so than heroes. I've always liked villains more as story elements.
Well, yeah, like Star Wars, like The Force Awakens, like Rey's a nice kid and all, but like I just didn't relate to her in the slightest. Now Phasma, I'd watch an entire movie about, and so yeah, I'm certainly with you. In terms of
I think that Superman and Batman are Batman's a little entertaining at least, but Superman and like Captain America are kind of boring in the comics. Yeah. The entertaining characters are the bad guys. The Joker is more popular than any DC hero right now, and there's a reason for that. Like, people are obsessed with Loki in the Marvel universe, partially because Tom Hiddleston, but also partially because that character is more three-dimensional than most heroes are. Yeah, and so I think that Magic has the same thing. People have Jace fatigue, but are they really having Nicol Bolas fatigue? I don't know.
Well, I would also note, and thanks to user Dan94ever on YouTube for noting that this is core set. This is not Dominaria. So earlier, I believe I misspoke saying that Tezzeret would be a Dominaria Planeswalker. I don't think that's the case. Tezzeret is a core 2019 Planeswalker, where Chandra and Teferi have Planeswalker decks for Dominaria. So first of all, did we really need a new Chandra? Seriously? I mean, it's weird.
Maybe she meets up with Jaya and they have like a
That's got to be a thing. Oh yeah, the Vorthoses are losing their mind over Jaya. The new theory is that
Cranky Grandma Jaya is my favorite.
Well, there's a new theory that Jaya is also this character called Mother Luti or Mother Lufti, that I guess she was like at the Care Keep the whole time. Oh yeah, they're losing their minds, and I love it. Nice. Just they're even going down to like looking at the braid style. Like, oh yes, the braid is the same as this braid, and it's fascinating.
Wow, they go super deep, and they
do, and I love it.
Yeah, which is sweet. So, one Gabby Sparts, who is amazing in her own right. Super Queen decided to share.
Don't type that in on MTGO though, because
star. That's what you get. Yeah. But she says too much effort went into this for it to be a poop post, if you will. A Lantern player wrote out a guide on how you can slow down the pace of game 1 so that you win the match 1-0 and avoid game losses along the way. And it is asinine, and it is absurd. This post is absolutely ridiculous. I'm going to bring it up on the screen now because you got to see it to believe it.
It's like a thesis.
It's a thesis.
Yeah, we start going about like, well, just don't lose, game 2. Just always draw out game 2. The legality of it. What's a slow play? What's a stalling play? So on and so forth. Reading your opponent, methodology. We have examples. We have the dead ends. I mean, my God, I'm serious. I'm still going, by the way. I'm still scrolling. Mm-hmm. I somehow just reached the end of it, which I appreciate that the top comment noted that as an L2 judge, thank you very much on the lesson of how Lantern players might intentionally slow their pace of play to disadvantage their opponent. This is stalling with a capital S.
Yeah, this post is frustrating. Lantern doesn't have a great reputation, and I think attitudes like this certainly don't help. And, I know a couple Lantern players who have made it a point to go quickly and try not to draw out the game because Lantern has a reputation of just sort of taking very long to win. And they've made it a point to get very refined with the deck so that they're not doing that. I play an unpopular deck in Dredge, and so I try to keep things as above board as possible. I know my deck is broken. I know I'm doing a lot and it can be hard to keep up with. And so I go the extra mile to make sure that everything's above board. I will fan out my graveyard for you. I walk you through every trigger, even sometimes being a little too careful, if you will. But I don't want to do anything to contribute more to a deck that already has a bad reputation. And so it's very frustrating to see somebody kind of wriggle in that, like a pig in slop, to be like, you know what, you think we're all terrible grinders, slowers? I'm going to show you. And it's like, no, don't do that, because there are people who are trying really, really hard to not be part of that. And you're just making it more difficult for them. And the whole thing was just frustrating, just sort of being proud of the wrong things, if you will.
It was really weird.
Yeah, by the way, we are not going to post the link to that article. I will, however, post to Justin Cohen's 35-page thesis on how to correctly play Lantern if y'all want it, because that is a delight. It's really good, is why. Because Justin Cohen,
that Lantern has its own subreddit. Like, look at God.
That's insane. By the way, that is absolutely insane.
To be fair, this thesis clocks in at over 5,000 words. This would get you, full article status on every Magic the Gathering website. This could very well. This is like the Magic version of Not the Onion. Like, this could very well have been on Hipsters of the Coast. And no one would have questioned it. So now, since it's on Reddit, we don't actually know how to treat it, which is weird.
It's crazy. And in one ways, you're astounded by the amount of work that went into it, and the other ways is like, dear God, could you not?
I mean, think of all the other decks that person could choose to write about. Like, I know Storm players who would love some Storm Insight. I know some Counters Company, even the Nor and the Wary deck. Write a 3,000 word thesis on that. But why do you got to write 3,000 words about freaking Lantern control? Like, come on,
All right, so. I would argue that we kind of have a treat for those who are still with us at this point. Because we're bringing back a segment that hasn't been on the show in a while.
Yeah.
We're going to pass the salt, ladies and gentlemen. It's time to get a little bit salty, okay? And
the segment's so old we don't have the proper graphics.
Don't look at me.
Yeah, I didn't even have the right graphics on it, but it's fine. We have the overlay on, and it all started with a tweet from Aaron Forsythe that said the viewership for Grand Prix Lion was through the roof, and he's correct. I want to believe they set records. Leon,
yeah, I was going to say, which GP was that?
Lion. Hey, y'all.
GP Lion.
Hey, y'all.
Carlos Bruce Francis.
That's right. Dang it.
All right.
Anyway,
I'll put mine on mute while Evan goes off.
GP,
go ahead, buddy.
GP Leon was incredibly well watched, and that's terrific. Absolutely, no doubt about it. And that's really cool. And so, and someone had mentioned something about doing the modern standard split format for PTs, that being Seth, Saffron Olive, and I responded, hey, The Modern Pro Tour should coincide with the Modern Masters set release. The limited portion uses the Master Set product. You know how they're always like bragging and everyone's always freaking out about how sweet the draft environments are for the Master Sets? God, wouldn't you love to see that on camera? Wow, wouldn't that be weird to have a really high-powered draft set in the limited portion of the Pro Tour that's already the best-watched Pro Tour every single time? That'd be weird. Okay, whatever. And you would call it Pro Tour Modern Masters 2019 or whatever it is. Get on your brand, guys, because you're being weird when you have a Modern Pro Tour called after a standard set. However, here's where it got a little funky. Someone essentially said, does it make sense monetarily for Wizards to do this? And then Aaron Forsythe tweets, and this is rare. Let me point this out. That I love and respect Aaron, truly. But there are a few times in which I can say, Aaron, you are wrong. And not just a little, but a lot. He says, no, of course not. Okay. Well, and that's you, buddy.
Yeah, that's all me.
Does it make monetary sense? He says, not a ton. He says the master sets don't need much marketing. He said it would be cool for the game as a whole, and we have talked about it. Let me tell you, let's go back. The master sets don't need much marketing. I am a marketing manager, okay, buddy? That's what I do, okay? That's what I do. And I am telling you right now, they need it. And they don't just need it, they need a lot. Magic sets in general need it. And if anything, I want you to go back and look at Iconic Masters. I made a whole episode of Forgotten Lore about what happened with Iconic Masters. I can tell you that what might be happening is that, look, Aaron is not talking to retailers, and I don't blame him for not doing that for what it's worth, but I'm just saying he may not have boots on the ground. Where I'm telling you, not only do I have boots on the ground, I see the soldiers dying in the ditches because... Here's some numbers. Now that we're in like historical look back time, here's some numbers, okay, guys? Iconic Masters versus Modern Masters 2017. Now, right near the beginning of the sales period, where you could say, like, you know, this sales period for 2017, this sales period for Iconic Masters, and they are the same, right? Like a 3-month window or something. It sold 9% of what Modern Masters 2017 did. 9%. Think about that. If you sold 1,000 boxes of Modern Masters 2017 and you sold 90 of the other one, that's a problem. And there was a reason that everyone started flipping out. And there was a reason those boxes just started going straight for the floor. And there was a fire sale everywhere. And people were flipping out because the set was fine. That's your thing. You're like, well, there's still good cards in it. You're absolutely right, there's good cards in it. But you know what happened? Everyone got excited thanks to the marketing for Unstable. And no one cared about Iconic Masters. And that's important because until Jace was unbanned, Modern Masters 25 wasn't looking so hot. I'm serious. It wasn't looking that great. But, you know, there's a little line where you can say, didn't unban, didn't unban, didn't unban, and unbanned. And that's when the sales for M25 jumped. Because
that's good viral marketing.
That is terrific viral marketing. And this is, again, we talked about this previously in the top 10s, where it's a little bit more blatant, quote unquote, that they've done this type of thing where, you know, this is seriously, for me, I think Unbanning Jace was a marketing initiative and it worked like gangbusters. And now everyone's excited about it. And now we get to have weeks with spoilers. That's really cool because you're building to this crescendo because Iconic Masters was a gigantic failure. And I don't mean a little, I mean monster failure, like very well shook people's faith in master sets so bad. And I'm telling you that because I know that. I see that on the ground, boots on the ground.
I agree. When you're an order of magnitude lower in sales, you have a problem. To say that it doesn't need advertising is just a fundamental disagreement on reality. The fact that Jace unbanning picked this up is going to skew the numbers, but I would have been interested in an alternate reality to see had Jace not been unbanned and Jace still been included in the set, or alternatively, no Jace in the set, but some other, you know, $150 rare, I don't know, extra Tarmogoyf. So let's pretend there's another $150 card people want in these kind of sets.
Sure.
What damage did Iconic Masters do to Masters 25? I'd be very interested to know if there's any way to know that number. There is no way, but I would be interested to know that way.
There's certainly ways, and it's certainly, you know, it's an industry of people who know each other. But all I'm saying is, I'm telling you right now, from boots on the ground, that was a problem. M25 is going great, and that's terrific, and I love it, and I'm excited about it, and I'm glad that the master sets aren't like tanking. But for God's sake, don't ever say that your sets, particularly master sets, that cost more than your average bear, don't need that marketing. We need that hype. We need that crescendo.
Yeah, it gives you a little bit of insight into what they might have been thinking with Iconic Masters. Like, you have to wonder if they were thinking, oh, well, we can just sacrifice this at the altar of HasCon, and the hype around the cards, that the specific cards that we have are going to carry us home. We're giving you Elishnorn, we're giving you Flusterstorm, we're giving you Mana Drain, we're giving you, that's all the marketing we need to do. You have to wonder if that was the attitude that they had, which ultimately led to, quite honestly, the failure of the set. And it was very frustrating. You know, one of the things that we mentioned in the pre-show is, like you said earlier, Evan, you don't necessarily expect him to have had those conversations because of the role that he fills with Wizards, but you can also acknowledge, as the Tumblr kids say, you can also kind of check your privilege. You know, when I hear conversations about how expensive Magic is, you know, I can't relate to that because I'm very fortunate in that I can borrow cards online through my employer. I can borrow Magic cards through people that I know, but I acknowledge that when these discussions are happening. I don't say to people, well, Magic's not expensive. No, I will say that Magic certainly is expensive. My experience is different because of the place I occupy in the community. It'd be one thing if he said that. It'd be one thing if he said, you know what, I don't have conversations with those people, but I will certainly acknowledge that and take your word for it. The way that he sold it as it being fact is very worrisome, of like, really? Like, you know, you're not even acknowledging the disconnect there, you know, and there's a way to do that. And yeah, the sort of matter of factness of his approach was just like, was mind boggling.
It was just one of those times again where like Aaron is a super smart dude.
Badass,
but there's
very good at designing Magic cards.
There's very few times in which I can know 100%. I'm like, look, buddy, you don't got it right on that one.
And let's flip it. Let's move on from poo-pooing to your idea, which I really like, which is making a Modern Masters Pro Tour. That just I don't understand why that isn't being explored, or if it is being explored and they're just like keeping it secret for now. Obviously, you can't have. They would have to change the Pro Tour schedule. It would have to be 5 Pro Tours a year now, right?
Or
unless they change the set release. Yeah,
well,
you replace the Rivals of Ixalan Pro Tour.
Right.
Is that what we're doing?
Yeah, you would replace that one. The first one of the year instead would be the Modern Masters one, and they would bump it accordingly or whatever. But think about it from even from a Hasbro/Wizards, you know, business perspective. These are your expensive packs. These are the $10 packs. You don't want to get people excited to go open the $10 packs. You don't want people to look like, hey, look at this super sweet draft environment. Because again, they always brag about how sweet the draft is. It's very sort of cube-esque almost, but we never see it. We never hardly see it on camera at all. Like, showcase it in the best of ways. And one of your products that is one of the most expensive things that you make.
I definitely agree that we can have, like, Modern Masters release, like, for example, Modern Masters release, North American Grand Prix, European Grand Prix, Asian Grand Prix, probably all 3 on the same weekend of that limited environment, and then Pro Tour. Right, like 2 weeks. That's our general. Maybe 3 weeks to have like pre-release weekend, then Grand Prix, then Pro Tour. I think that would build up a ton of hype. That's 3 weeks worth of hype for your Modern Masters set, and it doesn't eat that much into your schedule. You know, most sets have sort of a month of lead up time or whatever. You know, it's. I think it's a great idea.
And I appreciate that, but you know, again, for me, I'm like, I try to come up with ideas that I pitch to Wizards that like, hey, you know, this is good for your bottom line and the players. Like, people would love to see that, and you would make a bunch of money. You cool with this? I'm cool with this. Like, and then the idea that they don't need marketing means that you'll kill ideas like that automatically, and I'm just not.
And it goes back to our regular discussion of what is the Pro Tour for? Is it for advertising your product, or is it for advertising the show? Because you know, Modern Masters sets aren't, as Pharmacist Judge notes in the chat, our buddy Min, who sadly did not make it to the final of the Great Dinosaur. But hey, only 8 people could get there. He's one of the final 96 or whatever. As he notes in the chat, the problem is that Masters sets are not an onboarding set for new players.
Sure.
That may be true, but Modern is a perfect set or a perfect thing to bring in viewers.
Yeah.
So even if you're not bringing in new players, you're still bringing in the viewership aspect. So you can have it both ways. You can sort of do both with that Pro Tour.
I mean,
I don't know. I'm amazed at the sheer number of times, and we've discussed this on the show, how many times I feel like you have to actually ask Wizards, do you like money? Like you said, said, this is not rocket science. Like, you are a business. You understand business enough to know that unbanning a huge card like Jace is going to have a windfall for you, but yet you don't understand concepts like this. Do you not like money? Like, how many times do we have to ask you this, Wizards? We're trying to give you money here.
It's just strange to me. And, you know, last year they decided to dip their toes twice. They tried the double dip in the Masters money, and they really botched the second one. And I'm afraid, you know, we're going to have another one this year. And are they going to try to release another set on top of it because, you know, the sales were fine? Well, yeah, but now the sales are not fine because everyone's scared to death. They're going to have to lose money or lose a lot more money than they're expecting to try to get rid of that product. So, anyway, moving on to Going Infinite. And Mark Rosewater this week in Blogatog, because again, the man is an absolute machine and makes the most content I've ever seen of anyone in my life. So he answers questions all the time, just all the time.
And with a grace that I could never emulate.
The man is a treasure, no doubt about it. Someone asked him, hey, why is Wizards trying to fix something that isn't broken? A game with a majority male player base, pro scene, and company staff, at least what I've seen from R&D credits, makes sense to have the majority of cards be male. You always talk about how people want to see themselves in a card. You are doing just that with the majority male representation. Man, that's a weird angle to start on. I'm not gonna lie.
Wait, get in the sea. Just get in a dumpster and just get in the sea.
I'm just willing to put literal stone any wager. This is a white dude saying this right here. That he's like, man, what's going on with Black Panther? Why did that thing blow up?
Yeah.
Oh, it must have been
There's
some
no
superhero.
on the Dominaria packs.
What's going on with Black Panther is perfect. Yeah.
So Mark Rosewater, of course, again in his infinite grace, mentioned that, look, seeing a warped world is harmful for everyone, men included, because it leads to a warped world view. Seeing less women or minorities in entertainment sends a message that they are less important in the real world and they play less of a role. Having a majority of male players makes it even more important that we strive to make the game reflect the real world, because perceptions shape reality. And that's not even getting to the huge value for everyone else seeing themselves in the game. It's hard when you're used to seeing yourself always represented to get how much it means to people who don't frequently have that opportunity. But I hear it each and every time we do it. It means a lot. So no warped entertainment is a problem, and it does need fixing. And there is part of reasons why Black Panther did what Black Panther did this past weekend. Literally made as much as Justice League did in its entire run in 4 days.
Black Twitter showed out. Like, when you look at the people who dressed up, in whether it be in cosplay or whether it be in traditional ceremonial garb. I mean, you look at the kids that were dressing up as their heroes, parents who were geeks and taking their kids, you know, for the first time. Like, that movie is making an impact. It is doing work. And the reason for it is simple. These folks have never seen something on this scale before that reminds them of themselves. And why shouldn't everybody have that? You know, I enjoyed Black Panther, but it didn't do for me what it has done for those folks. I had that with Wonder Woman. You know, that was my moment to be like, this is awesome. I get to see myself. Why would you not want someone to have that? Like, why is awesome, the concept of awesome, why is it something that you are hoarding? Why are you saying I only get awesome things? No! You know, when I play a broken deck in Magic, I want everyone to play broken decks. You know, that's not something I want to have just for myself. And it's a little frustrating and even sad to see people monopolizing those great feelings and saying, well, we have all these cool things, but why does everybody else? Like, everybody should feel the way that I felt when Alesha was spoiled and when Black Panther comes out. And that's something everybody should get to experience. And I appreciate Morrow handling this with grace, because I wouldn't have been able to answer this very nicely.
Yeah, the idea that, you know, again, why can't it just all be the same person that looks like me? You gotta open our eyes just a little bit.
Somebody brought that up. I had somebody say that with Black Panther. They were like, was Martin Freeman just the token white guy? And I was like, well, there's certainly been enough token black folks in movies, so where's the problem here, you know? Right. Like,
I also, I forget where I saw it on my Facebook, but somebody mentioned that one of their acquaintances or friends was like, why don't they just make a White Panther movie that has a fictionalized Scandinavian society? And they're like, they called it Thor. Like, yeah, they called it Thor. We already had White Panther. And it was amazing. And
wow.
That was just such a good comeback. Yeah, I mean, it also helped that movie is just amazing. But yeah, so this is a lot different than the last time that that Mark Rosewater answered a question from a possible probable troll. As, for example, this person's username is Phyrexia Things, as opposed to last time where it was definitely a throwaway user account that was definitely meant to be a dog whistle signal, to intentionally be off-putting and show who is asking the question. This is a much different situation. I feel like this might be an earnest question, and then even if it's not, it was handled in such a way that I think is a really at least an excellent argument to the contrary.
Yeah, and
yeah.
Go ahead.
I was just going to add, the Vorthos has brought up a really good point. So there were a couple of people who complained that there were no white folks on the packaging for Dominaria. If you want to get technical, as the Vorthos has said, Karn is like 3 or 4 white guys.
Karn is 6 white folks. Also, the packaging is white. The packaging itself is white.
I just thought it was fascinating. It's like, if you want to split hairs, you've got several.
And someone in the chat mentioned that maybe, it's not helpful for me to assume that this person was white. I'm just saying that from literally all of my life experience, I've never seen any African American speak like this.
Come on.
I've never seen it, like, ever.
And we're not done here. Is the other thing, as noted in the chat in both chats, so I will sort of amalgamate this. We're still, and also I watch an RPG show called Shield of Tomorrow that has a person named Sam DeLev on it, who is a non-binary handicapped person, disabled person, and there's not enough representation of either of those things in popular culture, in RPGs, in TCGs, etc. Every single hero, until I think her name is Zada or Zara or something like that from Overwatch, all of the women were all wafy, skinny. Zarya.
Yeah.
Every woman is a wafy, skinny, good-looking person. Where are my fat dudes at? Where are the people who are like realistic humans that I see on a day-to-day basis, with the penguin body type, as heroes? You don't have to be good looking and look like 1940s Superman to be on packaging.
Well, I also want to address, there was another criticism I saw that I wanted to point out. So there was an implication somewhere, I think it might have been Reddit, that it doesn't, that we only want this and sort of regardless of the story, that we're happy to just sort of take whatever we get and never mind if it doesn't make any sense. Transformers, I guess they just recently announced, Hasbro announced that they're going to be making 3 figurines of female Transformers that have been in the mythos since like the 80s. They've been around for like 20 years, but they've never had figures made before. And somebody was like, well, why are you doing this if it doesn't make sense? Well, these characters have been in the story for 20 years, so it's not like they've just been shoehorned. And just to clarify, Narset, so when Narset was revealed, it was alluded to that she was autistic. And let me tell you, autistic folks were not happy with the way that storyline played out. Like, they were the first ones to say, we appreciate what you're trying to do here, but this was mishandled. And so to say that we want it just to want it, one of the reasons that Alessia did so well is because the story was great. She wasn't a sex worker. They didn't there was no sort of like inspiration porn for, to slang inspiration porn. It was a really good story that really did it justice. And believe me, if there's a trans story that's bad, we're the first ones to say we don't want it. And the same thing happened with Narset. There were a lot of autistic folks that were very critical of that storyline. And so to say that we want it just for brownie points or to say that we want it is wrong. We are the first ones to call it out if the story is bunk.
All right, so we're going to move on here to the finisher, which begins with the giveaway. The giveaway winner this week from Olympia, Washington, Mr. Eric S.
Yay!
Yay! So congratulations, Eric S. from Olympia, Washington. You have won yourself a super cool, crazy deck box that changes color when you touch it and stuff.
Ooh, great.
I used to have shirts back in the 80s, when you could touch it and it would change color. It was really sweet. I don't know, those aren't cool anymore. But
there's also mood rings. This is a mood deck box.
It is moodish. It is the Ultimate Guard deck case Sidewinder Chromia skin, which is super neat. So
Olympia, Washington, you say?
What that is?
Yeah.
Right.
Someone posted a picture of their deck box on Twitter earlier, and I thought it was just dirty. I was like, why are you posting pictures of your dirty deck box? Now I think about it, those were hand and finger. Okay.
Wow.
I see you, Kaplan. I see
figured it out.
Well, I'll send you an email here the next day or so, and we will get you that awesome deck box for you.
Great.
That said, for the finisher, in breaking news, first heard right here on Magic Mics, notable internet subculture celebrities, urban wrestlers, urban camper bellers, and Urban Turban are launching a Kickstarter, to help produce a Dominaria set review. I don't always read these things fully before we get into it.
That's our names, right?
We hope you're as excited as we are for the project, and we have lots of ideas on how to make this an attractive proposition for backers out there. And for this week's finisher, we thought we'd share a few of those. Ruben?
Well, Kickstarter backers donating at the 10 copper piece level will receive for themselves the popular Magic-adjacent podcaster Ruben Bressler recording their outgoing message on their answering machine. Hello, you have reached so-and-so. They can't come to the phone right now because it's 2018 and no one has answering machines anymore. Grow up and use Snapchat like an adult.
Nice. Nice. Aaron?
Donators who help us out at the 1 gold level will have the privilege of getting Magic Mike's bobbleheads with all 3 of us. Well, at least 2 of us, because Ruben's will be more of a Mr. Potato Head. Just
wow. Because you got that straight tater. And you just go like, look, I'm Ruben Bressler. But you have to go like, Ruben.
It won't even have an arm or legs. It'll just be a raw potato.
Actual spud. Woo. Well, those of y'all willing to help us out at 50 rupees will get private pre-show access via the most exclusive baby monitor level straight from the Irwin household. Spoiler alert, it's not the baby's room.
Ooh, nice.
What? Oh my God.
Dear.
Yeah, that's
the good
crazy.
stuff.
That's something. I don't know
Top
if it's
shelf.
the stuff.
That's where Mama keeps the cookies. That's good stuff right there.
Her mama gave away the cookies.
Oh my God. All right. So that ends another episode of Magic Mike's. Thank you for joining us here live to discuss all things magic. Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you for having me. And if you're in Memphis, come say hello. I would love to meet you.
Awesome. Thank you, Ruben.
Thank you. Keep an eye out for our Kickstarter coming sometime very soon. And thanks again to Paragon Games for the trumpet blast this week.
Absolutely. So we're going to move on here to our final
Paragon
slide.
City Games. Sorry, Paragon City Games.
Paragon City Games. But I want to thank our sponsor, CoolStuffInc.com, our co-sponsor, CardHoarder.com, my co-hosts, Aaron Campbell and Ruben Bressler, you guys for watching, and hope you support us at patreon.com/magicmikes. Visit our website at magicmikespodcast.com that exists thanks to our Patreon supporters, or follow, like, tweet, favorite, share, subscribe, do everything social that tells people we exist. Catch us online at twitch.tv/magicmikes, on Twitter at magicmikescast, on Reddit at reddit.com/r/magicmikes, and on Facebook at facebook.com/magicmikes. Talk to us privately at magicmikespodcast@gmail.com. Follow the audio-only podcast at magicmikespodcast.libsyn.com, or find us on iTunes, or join us here next week. Same time, same place, for another episode of Magic Mikes. Good night, everybody.